In this session, I'm going to look at the various institutions and professionals who participate in the futures trading process. So, to start with, I would like to look at some of the key terminology, or probably key terms of a futures contract. Whenever I'm dealing with any futures contract, what are the key things that are associated with it? Obviously, we know that every futures contract is a standardized contract wherein the quality, the quantity, the location, uh, and the grade of the particular underlying asset are very clearly specified. So it's more and more of a standardized kind of a contract. So as far as the delivery date is concerned, generally what we see for majority of the contract futures contracts is there is a delivery month instead of a date. So probably we may talk about saying April futures. Means all these future contracts are settled only on one single specific day in April. So there is only one single delivery date for the entire month. So that's the reason they are mentioned through the delivery month rather than a date. So some exchanges may talk about, let's say, the 20th day of the month, or probably sometimes some exchanges may provide the delivery date as, let's say, the last Thursday of the month. So there could be differences in what is the delivery date, but generally, while defining the contract, they are defined as a delivery month, wherein the date is the same for all the deliveries on that for all the contracts in that particular month. So that is one important thing associated with a futures contract. And for each of the securities, the margin levels for each of the contracts, the margin levels, both the initial margin as well as the maintenance margin, they are very clearly specified as a part of the initial agreement itself. For each kind of contract, the initial margin as well as a maintenance margin is very clearly specified. Similarly, the quality of the underlying asset, because when we are talking about a specific commodity, let's say potatoes, there could be wide number of varieties of potatoes. So probably in terms of the length, the width, the weight, the number of marks on that potatoes. So all these things have to be very clearly specified. Again, the grading, if at all something is associated, all these things have to be very clearly specified as a part of the contract. And as we have discussed earlier also, these futures contracts generally, to a large extent, they go for cash settlement process. So if at all they are going for cash settlement, what is the way the settlement price is determined? Is it the last traded price, or is it the average of the last few trades, or is it some kind of formula on the trades during the last half an hour of the trading on the final maturity date? What is the typical mechanism that is involved with respect to the settlement process, for the final settlement process? How is the settlement price computed? Those things should be there as a part of the contract specification. But in case the contract is per physical delivery, because some contracts they will go for a physical delivery even. So if it is more from a physical delivery perspective, even the location of delivery has to be very clearly mentioned as a part of the contract terms itself. And apart from that, what is the pricing convention? Means what is how is the price quoted? Is it per ton or is it per quintal? What is the typical pricing convention that is being followed, and probably what is the tick size? If at all the price increases or decreases, by what extent can it go up? Let's say the current price is $100 and we say that the tick size is $0.5, then it means if the next price, if at all it increases, it can go to 100.5 or $99.5, but we cannot get the price as $99.75 or $95.25 because the increase or decrease is in terms of 0.5 as a tick size. So the next immediate increase or a decrease can come out only by 0.5 units up and not lesser than that. That is what is being mentioned as tick size. Even these details are specified as a part of the contract, and a lot of things are typically set up to make sure manipulation in the prices are not existing. So from that standpoint, there are some kind of price limits that are set. There are some kind of quota limits that are set, wherein in terms of contract size, quota limit is more about contract size, which can be traded by one single trader, or the maximum movement in price that can happen in one single day. This is being talked about in price limit. All these are typically set at the beginning of the contract itself, and finally there is a real-time distribution of the data to all the participants and or the websites. Real-time price data is being represented at every period. So all these things are something that are typically there as a part of every futures contract. What I can take you through is I can open up one futures contract document and I can walk you through all these various things, especially from an agricultural commodity standpoint. One futures contract document, what it contains, so that all these things can quite comfortably be related to that sale. All right. Okay, now let's look at this wheat futures contract that is listed on NCDEX. This is applicable for contract expiring in April 2014. That is what is the delivery month. It is expiring in April 2014. So the date is something which is decided by NCDEX, where all the contracts that are listed on NCDEX will be maturing on that particular single day in April 2014. Okay, so the underlying is wheat. The trading system is NCDEX. Okay, this is where you are talking about the unit. 10 metric tons is the unit of trading. So the pricing is typically done with respect to 10 metric tons, and delivery unit is also 10 metric tons, whereas the maximum order size, this is what is the quota limit I was talking about. Any order cannot increase 500 metric tons. See here, this is done to make sure that no one single trader or no one single individual can control the prices of the entire market. And this is what is the pricing unit per quintal. Per quintal the pricing is typically done, and the tick size is 1. So the increase is always in rounded 1 rupee. So there cannot be half a rupee increase or a decrease in the price as a part of the trading. Now looking at the quality aspects of this wheat, okay, these are the important specifications that are being mentioned. Damaged kernel maximum 2%, infestation damaged kernel there could be 1% basis, foreign matters like organic and inorganic there could be 1% to the maximum, all these kind of stuff. This is what is a measure of quality of that particular wheat. And quantity variation plus or minus 5%, whatever is being specified. The delivery location in case of physical delivery, this is the prime delivery center. Along with that, there are so many other delivery centers within 50 kilometers radius. And this is talking about the hours of trading Monday to Friday 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. This is what is the exchange specifying as the trading period. And so here we are talking about opening of the contract, the tendering period, the closing of the contract, clearing and settlement of the contract will commence with the commencement of the tendering period. And now if we see due date, expiry date or maturity date is the 20th day of the delivery month. And in case 20th is a holiday, then a Saturday or a Sunday, then the due date will be the immediately preceding trading day, either 19th or something like that. So all these things are specified for each contract separately. The price band, daily price fluctuation limit is only plus or minus 3%. Right, this is one major thing. So in any single day the price cannot fall below 3% of the yesterday's price or go above 3% of the yesterday's price. If it is exceeding, then there is a cooling off period for 15 minutes. The trading is stopped for some time. All these things, position limits at the max membership wise 100,000 metric tons or the 15% of the market wide open position, whichever is higher. He cannot have more than that, any particular member. And client wise only 20,000 metric tons is the maximum limit. So the item wise limits are very clearly specified. So if you can go through this, so the initial margin 5% is the initial margin. And what is the settlement price? Even that is mentioned by taking the simple average of the last polled spot prices of the last 3 trading days. We are talking about the spot prices of the last 3 trading days, but whatever, this could change from contract to contract, from underlying security to security. But what I am trying to say in this mechanism is these things are very clearly specified as a part of the contract specifications as we have seen here. Now, as we all know, in case of a futures contract, the major role is by the exchange. Right? Exchange, we say that it acts as an intermediary between the buyer and the seller. There is an exchange which is linking the buyer and the seller. So typically the membership of this exchange and any trading privileges. So when I talk about the membership of this exchange and trading privileges, they are all available only to individuals. But with the permission of the exchange, these individuals can pass on some privileges of the membership to any kind of organization or probably any kind of a corporation. But by default, these privileges are assigned to individuals itself. Now, every exchange is typically having a clearing house. Just a bit more deeper into the understanding of the world of exchange. Every exchange is having a clearing house or a clearing association. Major thing is the clearing house will actually take the role of the counterparty. For a buyer, the clearing house is the seller. And for a seller, the clearing house is a buyer. Now, the major role of this clearing house as a part of this exchange is to provide the financial mechanism, to handle the financial mechanism and to make sure that it is receiving the money from the buyers and it is receiving the goods from the seller, the commodity from the seller, and the amount is transferred from the buyer to the seller's account, commodity is transferred from the seller to the buyer. Or if it is cash settlement, the cash is pulled out from the buyer's account, it is receiving the cash from the buyer, it is paying the cash to the seller, or which of these parties, in case of cash settlement mechanism, whichever account is at a profit, depositing the money in those margin accounts, whichever the account is at a loss, receiving the funds from that particular account. All this financial mechanism part and even guaranteeing the payments to the other parties from each of the parties is one major important role that is performed by clearinghouse, which means for every transaction it is acting as a counterparty. So whosoever is has gained for the day and whosoever have lost for the day, the clearinghouse is responsible for collecting the funds from those who have lost during the day and depositing them into those accounts who have gained during the day and again entering into fresh contracts. So this is what we typically call as the clearing house follows the principle of substitution. What do I mean by this principle of substitution? If let's say there is a contract that is typically between buyer and the seller, the exchange or the clearing house builds a blockage here. It substitutes itself as a seller for a buyer. It substitutes itself as a buyer for a seller. So means it is actually acting as a counterparty in each of these transactions. And so from a end customer's perspective, the counterparty risk is negligible because exchange is a counterparty and historically exchange has never defaulted. So the counterparty risk is really negligible in case of futures contracts because of this principle of substitution. So any gains it settles by depositing the funds, any loss it is collecting the funds from those parties and it transfers in a timely manner. That's the major role that is associated with the clearing house. While the clearing house typically the two major mechanisms in which I see the clearing house is, especially with respect to the commodities markets, right? Especially with respect to this commodities market, the clearing house is a separate corporation itself. Whereas for all other futures markets, non-commodities based futures markets, equities, indexes, bond futures, any of these interest rate futures, for any of these other futures markets, what we are seeing is the clearing house is an additional department of the exchange itself. So it's a part of the exchange in case of the other future contracts, whereas with respect to commodities exchange, it is a separate corporation itself. It hardly matters except for the legal existence and few things from that dimension. So typically speaking, all the members of the exchange, see, when we are talking about members of the exchange, let's say this is the exchange, various members of the exchange, each member need not be a member of clearinghouse, but the converse is true. Every clearinghouse member has to be a member of the exchange itself. So even if the clearinghouse is a separate department or a separate department within the exchange or a separate corporation, whosoever are the members of the clearinghouse, it is mandatory that they are the members of the exchange also. Whereas the reverse, the converse, all the members of the exchange need not be the members of the clearinghouse at all. So this is one more important dimension that we need to understand between the exchange and the clearinghouse. All right. Now the next dimension that I'm going to look at is the members. Who are the members or the various participants in an exchange? Especially with the open outcry process, which means it's not an electronic kind of a process. In an open outcry process, there are various participants who are present. One are the locals. So they have own capital. They are in the exchange. They use their own capital for their own trades. Straightforward individuals. They have their own money. They trade in their own account, and they typically they typically based on some market analysis, they place their trades. Generally they are very short term oriented kind of traders. Then we have another set of individuals called scalpers. Scalpers are very high frequency traders. They trade quite often, many times during the day. Small price positions they want to take advantage of. They want to take the profits because of small changes in the price. Whereas slightly more time, slightly on the other side, we see day traders who again they are also a high frequency traders. They trade throughout the day, but they make their position zero at the end of the day. They close all the positions at the end of the day. They are classified as your day traders. And along with all these people who are trading in the various accounts, we also see some kind of brokers called floor brokers who trade for others for a commission. So, or probably we also see some kind of participants called dual traders. So dual traders are those participants who trade both for their own account as well as for their customers or clients. So all these are various participants whom we see in a typical exchange process. Then the most important dimension as a part of this session, the various functions. various functions of a clearing house. See, clearing house, as we have been talking of, it has it performs various things, right from the margining, collects the margins, original margin, verifies with the maintenance margin, and along with this, the clearing house is even looking at from a guarantee deposit perspective. I'll talk about it, and even it gets into the clearing and the settlement process. So three major dimensions which I can look at with respect to this clearing house. So whenever we are talking about, okay, let me talk about this as being the clearing house. There are various members. There are various members of this clearing house. So they deposit funds with the clearing house. Just like individual is depositing a margin with the brokers, each of the clearing house members are depositing margins just to make sure that whatever the contracts which they have submitted, they are very duly fulfilled. So this is what we are calling as the initial margin or the original margin. So again, this could be in terms of per contract, depending on the number of contracts that they have submitted. Per contract, there could be a margin, and it is very much determined by the clearing house itself. How much margin each member has to contribute. Is it in terms of amount basis, or is it in terms of per contract kind of a basis? What is the margin that each of the members have to submit is something that is very much decided by the exchange. And just like the individual trades, wherein whatever is the contract price and whatever is the settlement price for the day, depending on the difference between the two, the settlement price for the day minus the contracted price or the previous settlement price, whatever it is. So the difference between the two is actually going as a benefit to the long position in a typical individual scenario. The difference between the settlement price for the day and the contracted price or the previous settlement price, that is what is going as a difference, and that is the benefit to the long position in a typical futures contract. Means that amount is deposited into the longs accounts from the shorts account, right? The same logic I can use here with respect to clearinghouse members. The difference between the current settlement price and the traded price for a given day, that amount can very well be received or paid by the clearinghouse members. Each of the members on a regular basis, based on a daily basis, whatever is the settlement price for each of the contract, and whatever is the contracted price, the difference between the two is either paid or received depending on the position they have entered into. So that additional deposit, whatever is we are calling as the variation margin. So this amount is either received or paid depending on the net. Each of these members will be receiving this or will be paying it before the market opens. Before the market opens the next day. Right? So it goes either into the customer's accounts or into the members' accounts itself. And along with that, as I said, each of these members, they also need to maintain a guarantee deposit in case of a default. So each member along with the deposit, see these deposit, this original margin is based on the trades that are being placed. So based on the contracts that are being placed, these original margin and the variation margin come into picture. But there is a guarantee deposit also. This is purely like an insurance kind of a concept. In case of a in case a member has defaulted, in case the member defaults on any of the payments, the exchange or the clearing house can use this particular fund to make the settlement of the other member, make the settlements to the other members. So there is a guarantee deposit also that needs to be deposited by the members, clearinghouse members with the exchange, to protect against any kind of defaults of any of the members that happen during the period. So that amount cannot be withdrawn by the clearinghouse members as long as their membership position is continued with the clearinghouse. So generally, this member, if at all this member is unable to meet the obligation, right? Unable to meet the obligation in terms of the payments, there is a 5-step process. So what the clearinghouse simply does is fully margined whichever the positions, the fully margined customer positions are there, whichever the positions are collected with full margin, where full margins have been collected from the customers, they are all transferred to some solvent member. So if M1 has become insolvent, then probably all the fully margined customer positions that are there, they are generally transferred to some solvent clearinghouse member. Whereas the others, the under margined or non-margined, especially the firm's proprietary positions. Proprietary positions, you don't see any kind of margins associated with them. They are completely liquidated. And using that liquided amount, the settlement typically happens. And still, if that after doing all this liquidation, if the customer account is still negative or is in deficit, so whatever the additional margin, now the exchange looks out for whatever the additional margin that has been deposited by the member with the clearinghouse, that will be utilized for the payment. Even after utilizing it, if the account is still negative, then exchange membership is sold. Exchange membership is sold, and whatever comes out of that proceeds, they are used for settling the customer's account. And even after that, if it is still negative, the guarantee fund that is being put up within the that is deposited by the member, that is used by for the payment. Even in case of a further default, the clearinghouse surplus fund, clearinghouse has some kind of a surplus fund that would be used for the payment. Even in case of further deficit, the guarantee fund or probably the typical the guarantee fund of the other members would be used for the settlement process. So we see there is a sequence of steps that are involved in case any particular clearinghouse member is going insolvent or is unable to meet the obligations that are necessary for the trade. So this is a sequence of steps that are involved, which can really help in understanding how the default risk can be mitigated to a large extent. What are the various steps in case there is a default happening from one of the members? To what extent that risk is reduced? How the process is able to do the settlement? What are the various steps that are involved that would ensure the settlement in the entire process? Right? All right. Then the next aspect that I'm looking at in this is the delivery. The delivery mode or delivery mechanism that is associated, which I have discussed earlier. So any position which is not offset means it should be either cash settled based on the settlement price, or it should be physically settled based on the delivery. So the delivery mechanism for 90% of the futures trades, they are offset before the maturity date itself. But any of them which are not going by that much by offsetting, then they are going for either physical settlement or a cash settlement. And what we see is, in case of physical settlement, the counterparty is again, it buys from the seller and sells to the buyer. And in some cases where we call as exchange for physicals, it may so happen that the buyer and the seller, based on the exchange guidelines, there may be a direct buying and selling that may happen between the buyer and the seller, but the entire trade process has to be communicated very well to the exchange. So these are some of the delivery mechanisms that are associated with the futures market. So just to understand one more dimension wherein we are talking about various participants in futures market, here I am talking about one, futures commission merchants. So these are the brokerage firms. Now we are talking about from apart from the exchange, what are the other participants that are there in the futures market? So we are talking about brokerage firms, which we call as future commission merchants. These act as interfaces between the exchange and the end customers, individual traders. So they are acting in between them, but they can very well have one more layer here, and this layer is called as introducing brokers. This layer is called as introducing brokers, where we are talking about some individuals or some small firms who are interacting with the end customers and placing the trade on behalf of the customers. They are helping the customers to choose the right trades and go ahead placing the right trade. Future commission merchants, they are primarily their intent, they have been they got formed based on the Commodity Exchange Act. They are formed based on the Commodity Exchange Act. They are primarily interfacing the exchange and the individual investors. Now, they are all, now whether it is FCM or introducing broker, they are all registered as individuals itself, registered as associated person. Their registration should happen as associated person. So the customers, they are dealing with the customers and providing the support to the customers in terms of the placing of the trades. So when I look at the typical future commission merchant, so the main role involves in terms of helping the customers to place their orders properly. So for each of their customers, they maintain the margin, how much margin that each of the customer has deposited, and what is the current balance in their margin accounts. They look at the open positions that are there for each of the customers. What are the transactions that each of their customers have actually placed. So for all these things, they get some kind of commission. So there could be they can offer full service. Similarly, when I'm talking about introducing brokers, they are also performing similar kind of roles with respect to the customers. Whereas the other dimension, what we could see in the futures market from an advisory perspective, where we call as money managers. Here also we are seeing two major categories of two major categories of money managers here. One we are calling as, especially in the commodities futures market, one we are calling as commodity trading advisors, where they do the trading, they provide the advisory of individual trading accounts. Whereas on the other side we have commodity pool operators. They are like funds. The commodity trading advisors are more of individual advisors, so they work for single client. Whereas when we are talking about commodity pool operators, they just like a mutual fund, they collect the amount from various individuals and pool that into one single fund and operate and do the buying and selling process as a group rather than separately for each of these individuals. So these are the two major kinds of money managers or advisors we see in the commodities market. So so whenever I am looking at the individual trading advisors, because of the individual because of client specific kind of advisory and trading they provide, they can charge a performance based fee based on the trading activity, or there could be a management fee which is based on percentage of the assets under management. Either it can be paid on a monthly basis or a quarterly basis, or there could be a broker, and also there could be a brokerage or a commission kind of a fee for each of the trade that has been executed. So we see all these kinds of other participants also as a part of the futures commodity futures kind of a market, and this forms the entire set of institutional as well as individual participants in the futures market. If you have any further queries regarding any of these aspects, you can very well get in touch with me by giving me a call on the number that I have provided below, or send in an email at vamsidhar@facegurus.com. Thanks a lot for listening to this session. Thank you very much.